Mocked for my weight, I transformed with confidence. When I returned, my family grew jealous and tried to bring me down. Growing up, I was always an overweight child. I've always been bigger than the majority of the other kindergarten students. While my peers were still figuring out what made them distinctive, my size had already stood out. As I grew older, the weight I carried became more visible. By high school, I was indisputably overweight, and my shape and girth served as a continuous reminder of my differences. College was not much different. While some of my peers began to discover who they were or explore new aspects of themselves, I stayed trapped in the same identity, overweight and occasionally fighting with it. It wasn't easy being the bigger kid. It exposed me to continual ridicule, mockery, and nasty comments from people who didn't know or cared to understand me. Growing up, I was bullied more than I'd want to recall. Classmates teased me mercilessly. Their words ate away at me, creating profound doubts and self-doubt that, at times, felt hard to overcome. They'd call me names and make crude jokes, and I'd frequently be the punchline. I was always singled out, as if I were somehow unworthy of affection or companionship. I was continually excluded from games, parties, and gatherings. It felt like I was always on the outside, watching everyone else go through the regular ups and downs of childhood and adolescence from a distance I couldn't reach. These years of bullying influenced how I perceived myself and responded to the world. I felt out of place with others, so I sought sanctuary in books. I lost myself in literature and stories that helped me escape my daily troubles. Books did not judge me. They did not ridicule me. I became known as the nerd, and I didn't like it all that much. My younger sister, Bonnie, was radically different from me. She was only a year younger than me and possessed an effortless charisma that drew others to her. Bonnie thrived in social situations, whereas I was shy and reserved. She had a magnetic personality. She could come into a room and immediately have everyone smiling, laughing, and absolutely fascinated by her. Bonnie didn't just make friends easily, she seemed to have an intrinsic ability to persuade people to support her, almost as if she were the sun around which everyone gravitated. Regardless of our differences, I adored her. I took my job as her older sister seriously, feeling fiercely protective whenever she needed it. When she began attending the same high school as mine, I was overjoyed. Initially, being Bonnie's older sister made me feel proud, as if I had a particular place in her life. However, as she grew older, things began to alter. As Bonnie settled into high school and began to create her own personality, I saw a difference in how she perceived me. She began to see how different we were, and how differently we were treated. Whereas I was the bookish, quiet kind, she was vivacious and popular, someone who rapidly established herself among the cool circle. I observed as she became aware of my peculiarities and insecurities, which others considered uncool. Bonnie began to distance herself from me as she found new pals. She would then try to actively ignore or avoid me in school. That hurt. It genuinely pained me that my own sibling saw me as inferior. Nonetheless, I did my best to accept her decision, to give her the space she appeared to need, even if it hurt to think I was losing not only my sister, but also a friend. Bonnie gradually stopped ignoring me and began interacting with people who made me feel like an outcast. If Bonnie and I met in the corridors or at lunch, she and her pals would take advantage of any opportunity to embarrass me. They'd taunt me in front of other students or, worse, try to trip me as I passed past with my lunch tray, just to make everyone laugh. It seemed like I was losing her, not only to new people, but to the same mocking and nasty conduct I'd had to put up with for so long. I was always on guard, attempting to avoid not just my peers' criticism but also the humiliation inflicted by my own sister. It hurt a lot, especially because it came from someone I had always admired and looked up to. When Bonnie invited her pals over, they would try to gang up on me at home. They would rush into my room without knocking, then laugh and gesture to my body. They'd fling insults like geek and fatty at me like they were nothing. I'd feel like a zoo animal, as if I were there to entertain them. When they entered my personal space in my room, I felt small and alone, as if I were an alien in my own home. I tried talking to my parents about it several times, hoping they would realize how tough it was for me to deal with Bonnie's conduct. But every time I brought it up, they dismissed my worries. They'd smile and defend her actions, claiming that this was how siblings related, and that Bonnie was merely playing with me. They told me it was harmless, even suggesting that I loosen up and stop taking everyone's taunts so seriously. They told me that I was older and should be more patient and resilient. So, not only did I face years of bullying from my peers, including my own sister, but my concerns were repeatedly rejected by my parents. It made me feel isolated, as if no one in my own family realized or understood how deeply it hurt. The only time I ever felt properly noticed by our parents was when I received my grades. Academics had always come effortlessly to me, and I became accustomed to receiving high grades. In a way, it was the one area where I felt superior to everyone else. It was also the one way I could make my parents proud. The one part of my life that they appeared to actually care about. My parents enjoyed bragging about my accomplishments to friends and family, portraying me as the family scholar, as if my grades were evidence of their parenting prowess. But Bonnie detested the analogies. She was not an academic overachiever, nor did she want to be, but our parents' repeated reminders of my accomplishments made her resentful. They put my grades up as an example, meaning that she needed to do the same. I could always sense her annoyance and rage, which I assume is why she did what she did to me. Bonnie would occasionally attempt to destroy my hard work in order to get back at me. She'd sneak into my room in the middle of the night and take my homework. Sometimes, shortly before a large task was due, I'd wake up in the morning to find my meticulously finished work gone. Panic would set in, and I'd feverishly hunt through my books, papers, and files, becoming increasingly anxious with each passing minute. And there she'd be, smirking, watching me from the doorway, relishing every moment of my anxiety. To her, it was a minor win, a way to bring me down a peg and remind me that I wasn't invincible. She understood how important my grades were to me, how much of my self-worth I had invested in them, and she enjoyed disturbing that aspect of my life. I only out about her stealing my assignments years later, when she drunkenly admitted one evening. My friendship with Bonnie has grown softer over time. Though we're not close, you might say we've matured a little, and some of the bitterness from our youth has dissipated. However, the strong closeness that siblings often enjoy did not fully emerge between us. After college, I moved away and began constructing a life in a new place with an interesting job and new chances, which meant I didn't visit my family very frequently. As time passed, our communications became limited to occasional phone calls or texts. So, when I decided to travel home for the summer, I was truly excited to see everyone. It had been a long time since we'd all gotten together as a family, and I was excited to catch up and reconnect. However, not everything went as planned. Our family lunch began well enough. Everyone appeared delighted to see me, and for a moment, it felt like old times. That changed, however, when Bonnie unexpectedly revealed her engagement. None of us saw it coming, and we initially assumed she was joking. However, it became evident that she was serious. She proudly put out her hand, displaying a gorgeous ring, and I couldn't help but remark how exquisite it was. I was genuinely happy for her, delighted that she'd finally met someone she loved and who loved her back. Almost as soon as the congratulations subsided, Bonnie turned to me and inquired about my recent activities. I told her about my profession, my life, and how rewarding things had been for me. Before I could finish, she cut me off. "I can't help but say this," she started, smirking. "But why are you still fat? I mean, if your life is really that great, shouldn't you have lost weight by now?" Her remarks hit me like a slap, reawakening old insecurities I thought I had overcome. The room became uncomfortably silent, and I could feel everyone's gaze on me, waiting to see how I would respond. I merely shrugged and tried to laugh awkwardly at her comment. But my parents immediately joined in to criticize me. They began talking about how I was still obese and unmarried, and how they were concerned that I would never have children. I felt so mortified hearing them talk like that. My successes, the profession I was proud of, the life I had made on my own in another city, none of it seemed to matter to them. They were just concerned with my weight and the fact that I did not have my own family. As my parents and sister continued to talk about me, their comments wounded deeper than I imagined. I'd spent years of my life finally coming into my own, gaining confidence and independence, yet at those moments, I felt like the same nervous, awkward teenager I'd always been, desperate for my family's acceptance. My parents then applauded Bonnie for getting engaged before me and expressed their pride in her. To them, I was the inferior child, successful but not quite enough. What was supposed to be a happy family reunion had swiftly turned into a heartbreaking reminder of old scars. At that point, I felt more like an outsider than ever. Bonnie did not stop. She continued to ask probing questions. "So, when are you getting married? I mean, do you even have a boyfriend?" She was blatantly mocking me in front of everyone by bringing up my romantic life. My parents eagerly jumped on the subject, agreeing with Bonnie that it was past time for me to meet someone before it was too late. They pointed out that Bonnie, being younger, was settling down before me, but I, being older, was still throwing my life away at work. I attempted to argue that I liked my life the way it was, that my profession and freedom provided me with fulfillment. My job paid well, and I was passionate about it. And why did I have to find a man and have a child? I am content just as I am. But my words didn't appear to register. My mother, in particular, appeared disdainful, giving me a pointed look and taunting, What's the point of earning all that money if you don't have anyone to come home to? It was as if she couldn't believe that happiness existed outside of marriage or family. Sitting there, I had the typical feeling of being misunderstood, that my life choices were disregarded. This was my family, the ones who should have known me best, but they seemed to be obsessed with a different idea of happiness. I had come home seeking connection and warmth, but instead got judgment and taunts. Bonnie then mentioned that she anticipated me to have at least a +1 by the time her wedding rolled around. She explained that she didn't want people to think her sister was an old, miserable woman who was getting married alone. The comment stung. I simply shook my head and assured her I would try. This is when my parents casually told me that since Bonnie's wedding was approaching, even if I couldn't find a spouse, I could at least try to lose weight and look better for her wedding. They suggested that if I reduced weight, it would be simpler for me to attract a partner. Bonnie agreed with my parents and said she wanted me to lose at least a few pounds. I sat there, astonished and humiliated, with an aching that I hadn't felt in years. How could my relatives talk to me like this? Did I truly deserve their hateful words simply because I was overweight? Was I not meant to have feelings because I was fat? I was a normal human being, just like them. I functioned exactly like everyone else. I never saw my weight as a hindrance, so why should they? I'd even dated men who liked me just the way I was, but my parents and Bonnie were making it appear as if my weight kept me from finding love or having men approach me, which wasn't even true. I wanted to defend myself and tell them how cruel their words were, but I felt paralyzed and unable to find the correct words. Their statements took me back to high school, to the agonizing times when my weight made me a target. I despised how nonchalantly my relatives brought up my deepest fears, seemingly unconcerned about how they affected me. So I sat there, holding in my pain, and let the topic go to anything else. When I returned home from my trip to see my family, I pushed myself into reducing weight with a zeal I had not realized I possessed. It began as a method to prove something to my family, but it eventually grew more personal. I joined a gym, followed a rigorous diet, and even hired a personal trainer. My trainer has been a lifesaver. She knew just how to assist me through a path tailored to my own needs, having gone through her own change from overweight to healthy weight. She created a routine specific to my goals and encouraged me every step of the way, reminding me to give myself grace when I stumbled. This time, everything seemed to click. I started losing weight steadily, and as the pounds fell off, I felt lighter, not just physically but also mentally. For the first time in my life, I began to feel and appear different. My confidence increased quickly. I used to assume that decreasing weight wouldn't have much of an influence, but it has. People see me differently today. Strangers are nicer and more attentive. Friends and colleagues regard me with fresh respect, and I can't deny that this feels like a validation I've never had before. It's as if I've suddenly become more noticeable than I was before. My new body brought a new sense of style. I overhauled my entire wardrobe, filling it with clothing I'd only fantasized about wearing. I even opted for a full hair makeover, attempting a daring and trendy style that I would have been too afraid to try in the past. Perhaps it seems expensive, but I've never felt so good. I look in the mirror now, and I don't recognize the person staring back. It's like meeting a version of myself that I never knew existed. I'm proud of how far I've gone, not just because I've lost weight, but also because I've gained confidence and self-assurance. Bonnie's wedding is approaching, so my family has invited me to fly down and join them for lunch to finalize some details. However, I do not feel like returning home. I don't want my family to ridicule me again and make me feel tiny, especially now that I'm feeling good about myself for the first time in a long while. I don't want to go to Bonnie's wedding anymore because of how she and my parents have treated me. But I know if I don't go, they'll be furious and give me a long lecture about how family is family and how, no matter how heartbroken I am, I must be present for Bonnie's big day. So, would it be wrong for me not to attend my sister's wedding? Update 1. Wow. I'm overwhelmed by everyone's response. Some of your proposals are truly humorous. I can't believe you're encouraging me to show up and mess with my sister now that I've shed so much weight. Growing up as a fat kid had a negative impact on my self-esteem, particularly in terms of how I perceived myself. I struggled with self-doubt for a long time, always believing that I wasn't good enough or didn't measure up to others. But reading all of your responses has been a game changer. It's as if you've helped me see myself in a completely new light, and I'm finally starting to feel more confident than I ever have. In fact, I'm seriously considering turning up to my family's lunch and shocking them. They haven't seen me in a long time, and since I don't use social media, they have no idea how much weight I've dropped. It will be interesting to witness their reactions. Update 2. Okay, Reddit, you're not prepared for this upgrade. Grab some popcorn because things are about to get exciting. I decided to fly down to join my family for lunch. I assumed that when they saw me, they would be happy with the transformation I had undergone, because after all, they had been the ones who pushed me toward it in the first place. Surely, they'd be overjoyed to see the positive improvements in me and finally recognize the effort I'd put in. The instant I walked into my parents' house, their jaws absolutely dropped. They looked at me, astonished, as if they couldn't believe I was the same person. After a time, they stammered, wondering if it was actually me. I gave them a big hug, thrilled with their reaction. They continually complimented my appearance, saying how beautiful I looked and how they couldn't believe it was me. However, when Bonnie came, the situation changed. She didn't notice me at first, disregarding me as if I were invisible, as she had done many times before. But when I rose up to greet her, she did a double take, her eyes widening with surprise. She gave an odd, almost forced laugh before reaching over and pushing her fingers on my stomach, wide-eyed, as if she wanted proof that I had truly dropped all of that weight. My parents chuckled at her reaction and informed her that they couldn't believe it either. As we settled in for lunch, the subject turned to my makeover. Bonnie and my parents bombarded me with questions about how I'd done it, marveling at how different I appeared. Their voices were full of surprise, as if they had never imagined I could look any other way. Bonnie, in particular, kept saying that she had never anticipated me to shift so dramatically. After a while, she said, "When I first requested you to lose weight, I never imagined you'd look this good. I had no idea you had that jawline and those ankles underneath all that fat." I hesitated, trying to retain my cool, and smiled at her before telling her, "Bonnie, I've always been gorgeous. Losing weight simply improved my characteristics." Bonnie, on the other hand, contended that it wasn't just that. There was something else about me that was unique. She then had the audacity to inquire, "Did you have any procedures done on yourself? Because you can't look this fantastic on your own." I could feel my blood starting to boil. The hubris to believe that I required surgery to look attractive, despite the fact that I had worked so hard to achieve my current appearance. I looked her directly in the eyes and said, "Wow, Bonnie. It's amazing how little you think of me. No surgery, just a lot of hard work and self-love, which you should try someday." Bonnie's expression changed from surprise to displeasure, but I didn't care. It felt amazing to finally say something and put her in her place. Before she could react, my parents jumped in, attempting to smooth things over in their own way. "You shouldn't be offended," my mother replied. "All three of us have never seen you look like this before. Honestly, you look more lovely now than Bonnie, and she's the one getting married." Bonnie appeared much angrier following Mom's remark. I simply ignored her and concentrated on my food, allowing my sister to seethe in her rage. Then my mother interjected. "You know, I was thinking, maybe you should go back to your original hair color. I believe you would look even better in your natural hue. This blonde appearance causes you to stand out too much. Maybe you could just return to your former look." Bonnie and my father quickly agreed with her. My father supported my mother, saying that Bonnie was always the blonde daughter in the family and I was the brunette, so it would be a good idea for me to return to my original hair color, which would make me appear more like myself. Hearing their statements, I was taken aback. I suddenly felt like the three of them were ganging up on me and attempting to bring me down. My hairstylist was the one who changed my hair color to blonde because it complemented my skin tone and face better. It had nothing to do with attempting to outperform or overshadow my sister. I could see why Bonnie was jealous of me because I looked so nice right now, but I couldn't figure out why my parents were so unhappy with me. It was as if they wanted to revert me to my original self, despite the fact that they were the ones who wanted me to be more acceptable for their darling daughter's forthcoming wedding. But now that I did, they couldn't accept who I had become. Instead of recognizing my progress, they sought to undermine me. Finally, I questioned my folks. "What is your problem? Why can't I be blonde? Does my sister own that hue or something?" I paused, annoyed. "No, she doesn't. I can be either blonde or brunette. It's my decision. Why does it matter to you so much?" I couldn't understand why they were so obsessed with returning to my former self, as if my appearance had to match who I was. My mother scoffed at me, claiming that I was willfully sabotaging Bonnie's approaching wedding by attempting to stand out with my appearance. Bonnie also jumped in, suggesting that with my weight loss, I was already going to stand out, so did I really need to match her hair color? My father, as usual, agreed with them, telling me that I was being difficult for no reason and that, as Bonnie's sister, I should be more tolerant. I couldn't believe what I heard. It was not about stealing anything, it was about giving myself the freedom to do whatever made me happy. But instead of supporting it, they were all concerned about how it would make Bonnie uncomfortable. "Do you know what? I'm done with this," I murmured, the words almost burning as they left my lips. "The three of you are so wrapped up in your own negativity that you can't even admit I've changed. The reality is, I've always been fantastic just the way I am, but none of you ever noticed. Now that I've lost weight, it's still not good enough for you. No matter what I do, it is never enough. I took time to process what I had just said. They only gazed at me, and it didn't matter. I was done with holding back. Since you all have so much to say about me, I believe it is time I gave you some unsolicited advice, just like you do to me. I turned to my mother first, feeling the words surge inside me like a deluge. Mom, I really hate how loose the skin is around your eyes and your lips. They droop on one side when you laugh. I can't help but notice all your crooked teeth, and honestly, it's just disgusting to me. Dad, I said sharply. You're bald. You really have no right to say anything about anyone's hair or their hair color. How are you going to criticize someone's looks when you can't even keep a full head of hair? I noticed his face stiffening, but I wasn't finished yet. Finally, I resorted to Bonnie. And you, don't ever talk down to me again. Between the two of us, I've always been the better-looking sibling. But now, with all the weight I've lost, you look even fatter than me. Just look at those chubby arms of yours. Bonnie's cheeks flushed with shame, and she appeared to be on the verge of tears. I then hoisted my glass, downed my drink in one go, and walked out with a smirk, leaving everyone stunned and astonished. I said everything I had to say. I couldn't believe these words had come from my mouth, yet I didn't regret them one bit. They deserved to be humiliated after years of being criticized. After lunch, I flew directly back home. I didn't want to stay behind and attend Bonnie's wedding. Since then, my phone has been overloaded with voicemails and texts from my parents and Bonnie. They've been calling me disrespectful and foul-mouthed for how I spoke to them and then left. Mom even insists that I fly down to Bonnie's wedding, claiming that not having me there will make her in-laws unhappy. Update 3. So I ended up skipping Bonnie's wedding. Thanks to all of your suggestions, instead of returning home to attend, I decided to treat myself to an impromptu stay at a 5-star resort. It was truly one of the best moves I'd made in a long time. I spent the weekend doing whatever made me happy, no drama or pressure, just pure enjoyment. I treated myself to a spa day, binge-watched my favorite shows, and even discovered some new sites in the city that I'd been dying to visit. I've also blocked my relatives, so they can't contact me again. I'm weary of being bullied by them and want to avoid all of the poison and drama. Right now, my primary focus is on self-care. I yelled at my wife that having a child with her was the biggest mistake of my life and that she had made me miserable. Now, I regret my words. Repost as my last post got removed. I have been with my wife for 4 years. I have a 5-year-old from a previous relationship. My 5-year-old, Leah, is from my first long-term relationship during college. We split shortly after her birth, as my then partner admitted to being unfaithful and not being ready to start a family. My daughter loves my wife. They are inseparable. My ex does not have much to do with my daughter or myself except cause the occasional drama. She did not want any custody or visitation time, so my wife is her mother for all intents and purposes. My wife is almost 8 months pregnant. She has shut me out of the entire pregnancy but refuses to admit anything is wrong. I feel completely ignored and hurt. When we first learned she was pregnant, she told me while I was making breakfast. Of course I was elated. However, since it was an unplanned pregnancy, I asked how she was feeling at first. She began smiling and crying about how excited she was. I picked her up, gave her a million kisses, and told her I was so excited to have a baby too and what a wonderful mother she would be. All good, right? She went all out to announce it to everyone else. Balloons and boxes, t-shirts and best big sister mugs. I assumed the casual announcement with me was because she wanted my feelings on growing our family before celebrating. However, when her sister asked about how I liked my box, my wife quickly said, "He didn't get one, this isn't his first rodeo." It was like pulling teeth to get her to let me go to the ultrasound appointments. She didn't want me to miss work, didn't want to interrupt Leah's routine, excuse after excuse. When it came to listening to the heartbeat, my wife instantly started crying happy tears. The tech was telling her how strong the heartbeat was, how precious our little one was, etc. I was feeling a bit emotional and cleared my throat to prevent crying. The tech said, "Aw Dad, isn't that sound beautiful?" My wife immediately said, "This isn't his first child. It's not that special for him." I immediately said this is one of the most important moments of my life. I can't think of anything more special. The atmosphere was clearly awkward after. Another thing that bothered me, I heard Leah and my wife's mom laughing in the living area. I was in the kitchen making dinner. When I walked in and asked what the fuss was about, Leah was touching my wife's stomach and was laughing with excitement that the baby was moving and it would be so cute. My wife let my daughter and Mill feel the baby move before me. I was hurt but simply said how happy I was. Later that night, my wife was poking her belly and laughing. I asked her to feel as well and she said, "You felt Leah move as a baby. What can be better than that?" She was the cutest baby ever. She has felt pretty poorly throughout her pregnancy, but refuses to let me help her. If I bring her a snack and drink, she offers it to our daughter. If I try to rub her feet or legs, she asks me to play with our daughter so she doesn't feel like she is being replaced or ignored. I simply do not ignore my daughter. We have bonding time. I'm an active parent but I want to love my wife. She can hardly eat but when I asked her what I can prepare for her, it's whatever Leah wants. We went to the zoo with Leah, and my wife started feeling bad. She had cramps and was considering going to the hospital, severe nausea and dizziness. I carried her to a bench nearby and she began to cry saying she can't even stand up. I told her let me call an ambulance or I'll carry you to the car and drive you. She said she didn't want to ruin Leah's trip and we didn't even make it to the aviary, Leah's favorite part. I said I wasn't leaving when she asked me to continue to go through the zoo with Leah. We sat for a while until her dad showed up. She didn't even tell me he was coming, and he took her to the doctor. I was shocked, and followed them with Leah. When we arrived, Leah was upset about missing the aviary and pouting. At that point the health of my wife and unborn child were my concern. I really didn't care that Leah was upset. My wife was irate that I made Leah miss out. Another example, we were watching Leah play in a local kids' sport. I asked her, "Do you think our kid will be athletic, artistic, enjoy science or math?" She said, "This is Leah's moment, we shouldn't make it about someone who isn't even here." Leah was on the field, we were sitting in the stands. We had both waved to her, held up a sign for her, everything. I just wanted to talk about our baby. When her bump was really showing, she would always show it off to anyone who wanted to look. Her family, friends, siblings, etc. "Do you want to see my bump? I'm huge, so excited, I can't believe it's only X more weeks." They all touch her bump, talk to it, etc. Her parents come and read or tell back in the day stories. They go to the beach? 1,000 bump pictures posted on her friends' social media accounts, so ready to be an honorary auntie. Her sister wife puts the B in bump and beautiful. If we go out together, she wears the loosest clothes so I don't see it. I'll even see her pull her shirt down when she sees me come into the room. She sat on me the other day after being playful in bed. Her bump was right in my face. I ran my hands up it and said, "You are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, you already are a great mom to Leah. I can't wait to see you as our family grows." This was one of the first times I was really able to feel her bump so I rested my hand there and said, "I love you so much already, I'm so excited to meet you. I hope you have your mom's eyes." She moved off of me and said, "I know ex-partner had a bigger bump than me. I bet it was fun seeing Leah move all the time." "You don't have to act like you care, I know you've done this before." I said I don't think about it that way. Leah is special, but this is a completely new and different special because it was with her and our baby was someone completely new and special. She began to leave the room and I could see her shoulders shake from crying. I am 100% positive she is not cheating, nor has she ever. I just can't wrap my head around why she doesn't want me to be happy about this. The rest of the time is completely normal as long as I don't mention the baby. She is affectionate, initiates intimacy, brags about what a good husband I am and how great I've made this pregnancy. We plan for our future, have date nights, everything else. Unfortunately, we had a fight where I snapped. I had a break between clients at work, so I went to a local baby store and got a lot of things she had planned for the baby and nursery on her Pinterest board. I came home and surprised her with flowers, a prenatal massage certificate, and her favorite food, as well as the baby items. She seemed very grateful, but when I came home, editor's note, OOP meant when he got home after going back to work again, the items were no longer there. She said she returned it to buy Leah stuff, as she was going to feel left out. I lost it, I cried for the first time in our marriage and yelled that having a child with her was the worst mistake I've ever made, that at least my deadbeat ex at least gave me the chance to know my unborn child. That I didn't care about the baby because she wouldn't even let me bond with it. I do care, have since she told me. That I hope she was as miserable as she made me and that she better be prepared for a custody dispute. She is a SAHM for Leah. She simply said, "I know you don't care about the baby, but I'll die before you take my baby from me." What? I have begged her to let me interact with her, our baby. I asked her if her therapist had any insight on why she was being like this. She said no, that she isn't doing anything. I told her what I said above and she said I had those experiences already so it shouldn't matter. I asked her if the baby was mine. I know it is, I was just being mean. She threw her phone at me and said yes, go through it. I'll do a paternity test, whatever you need. I just called her parents and asked them to go to our house as we were having a disagreement and went to a hotel. I do not want to stress her or our unborn child, and I really want to repair this, but I truly don't know how. I'm staying at an Airbnb for now until we can figure this out, but I truly don't know what to do. I miss her like crazy, and I can't even begin to understand why she wants to behave this way. I have apologized for what I said, but I can't take back what I said, and I worry about when our baby will be born, if she will even want to be a family with me, or let me have anything to do with our baby. I spoke with a mutual friend who says she is very distraught and says she can't be a single mom, loves me, but her actions prove the opposite time and time again, even when I beg for change. Relevant comments. Why did you say those things? OP, downvoted. I said those things because I wanted to hurt her like she has been hurting me. It's as simple as that. I regret it. I have apologized. She has told me time and time again you shouldn't care, and I told her whatever I thought I could to hurt her. It was childish and immature of me, and it was a knee-jerk reaction. I hadn't planned on saying any of that. Commenter. Yeah, I can understand why you're angry. Has she explained why she has been saying those things? Resentment is a weird thing. She may not have even realized she had that until she became pregnant, but I do think that if that was something she'd been feeling, that it's something she should have spoken to either you or your therapist about. OP. Nothing. I've begged her to talk to me about it. I've told her we can go to counseling together, and guess what her response was? She cried and asked if I was unhappy in our marriage. I said no, I want to be more involved with you in this pregnancy. You've left me in the dark. I asked if she was unhappy. Did she want a divorce? Decide she doesn't want this baby? More tears, seemed genuinely hurt. I would even think that. Makes no sense in my mind. Apparently I should just stand on the sidelines. Commenter. Is it possible she's resentful of your 5-year-old? What's your relationship with Leah's mother like? OP. I truly don't think she is resentful. She adores my 5-year-old, and I think she is probably the preferred parent. She takes her to the park, museums, mommy and me painting. Shows up to school events, muffins with mom, etc. without fail, takes care of her when she's sick, plans our vacations out around my 5-year-old's interests. Her cousin had said something about not bringing her stepdaughter before, and my wife completely freaked and said that we don't use titles around here that make us feel like we aren't one family. She is my daughter and nothing less and will not be excluded, type thing. When she was first pregnant, we took a short trip to see some of her family and she cried every day about missing Leah. She is in therapy and has been since we met for anxiety and depression, but it is clearly no help. I have brought up prenatal depression at her doctor's appointment, but she really doesn't match, as she is elated unless I specifically bring up the baby. Downvoted comment about seeing an attorney because he probably won't be allowed at the birth and they should just get divorced. It's definitely a fear in the back of my mind. I know Leah will be devastated. My wife already mentioned wanting her mom in the delivery room since I've already seen my kid being born, that it would only serve to embarrass her if I'm in the room this time. Commenter. You two need couples therapy immediately. You should have started it after her first or second comment. You've known for months things weren't right. Also, call her OB and explain what's going on. Ask them to make a record of her shift in behavior and stress that she's never done anything like this before getting pregnant. OP. I stupidly attributed it to hormones and other issues that come with pregnancy. She was sick for most of her pregnancy and for a lot of it actually lost weight, was constantly hungry but couldn't eat and became very body conscious. She is doing much better now and is a healthy weight, and I genuinely thought it would get better. It's much easier to see in hindsight that the first few comments were deeper than that. Commenter. Why the fuck did you say all that shit? She was acting really off, for sure, but you really fucked up. That's some awful, very possibly unforgivable stuff you just said. And you seemed like such a decent guy. OP. I am an idiot. I did fuck up, and I have apologized, not that it means much to her at this point. I said whatever I could say to hurt her. It was months of resentment building up. Months of begging for her to tell me what's going on, to let me in, to let me think of baby names with her. I was and I still am hurt. I hope it can be repaired, as I would like to be there for her and be a full-time father to my child. It breaks my heart to think of splitting custody time. OP clarifies his relationship with Leah and the aviary event. OP. I absolutely did not care that we did not see the aviary. We go to the zoo regularly and I had promised we would go back. When your pregnant wife is so ill she begins crying that her legs don't work and she can't walk and begins saying she thinks she might die due to such strong abdominal cramps, you're not concerned with missing the aviary. I did not tell my child I did not care. I told my wife in the hospital that her and our unborn child's health became before birds and that Leah can pout and be mad until we were certain she and our baby were okay. We do everything for Leah. Leah and I have bonding time both with and without my wife. Together we enjoy fishing, going to the arcade, and playing Barbies. My daughter is confident in our relationship. Just the other day my dad said he didn't want to play horses with her anymore and she of course said, "Fine, I know Dad will always play with me." I absolutely have not and never will neglect or abuse my child. This is such a far reach because I was concerned more about my wife than my daughter going to an aviary. To another commenter, she is 5, and is very smart. She knows that the hospital and ambulance are things people need when they are very sick. She completely understood my wife felt bad, even said I needed to get her tummy medicine so we could keep going. I didn't say, "We are leaving," cry about it. I did tell her we were following Mom and Grandpa to the DR because Mom was feeling very bad, and that we can come back another day, and said when Mom feels better we will get her an ice cream since she didn't get to see the birds. She pouted, all kids do. Did she see that I was more concerned with my wife? Yes. She even commented that Grandpa seemed upset. We live in a hot and humid climate, and my wife went from red and using a fan to pale white and saying she was cold. It was scary for me. When you arrive at the hospital and want updates. Are you okay? Is the baby okay? And your wife is miffed that you didn't take your child to an aviary and that's all she wants to talk about is that she is pouting. It hurts. Commenter. And for someone who is a self-proclaimed good husband, why has he not addressed this with his wife before? If she is acting so out of character, and showing odd behaviors, why has he not talked to her about it? Every in-tune partner would be scrambling to get to the bottom of this after a few remarks. He just let that shit glide. OP. You don't think I've talked to her about this? I am shut down every time. I exploded after begging her to talk to me for the 100th time. This was not out of nowhere. I have literally gotten on my knees in front of her and asked why she is doing this. If there is a reason, what does her therapist say? Do you want to go to therapy together? And she says she doesn't know what I'm talking about. It is the most frustrating, infuriating thing. It's so hard to watch something so special pass by you and pretend it's not happening. I regret what I said and don't expect sympathy. But my explosion was not from lack of trying update. It's been about a month since I posted. This is a bit long because so many kind Redditors reached out and gave me advice and shared their experiences and asked for an update. After I posted and stewed for a little while, and had a couple of drinks, I called my Fiel. He and my wife are very close, and I respect his opinion. He has been married for a very long time, and seems to have a happy marriage and has good relationships all around with his family. I didn't specify what issues we were having, but he was over at my house while I was staying in an Airbnb, so it was no secret we were having problems. He has more of a traditional marriage, and at some point asked what I had to lose by putting pressure on her to talk. I said I feared I would push her away more, and he pretty much told me that I was living in a separate house than my pregnant wife, freaking out about a potential divorce. What did I have to lose? He advised me to be a man, and come back to my house and lay it on the line. I told him I'd be coming over the next day. They asked if they could take Leah to buy some sparklers for the upcoming holiday and spend the night at their house. I agreed, and when I went to my house the next day I came in with flowers and stuff to make dinner. My wife asked what I was doing there, to which I replied I lived there and would like to sit down and talk. I gave a long apology for my actions and words. When I finished, I said it was her turn to tell me what was going on. She tried to claim nothing, that everything was okay. After a while, I said my heart is broken, that we have been through some tough things together, fought for each other, and now you sit here and lie to my face. We both sat there and she cried for about 30 minutes until eventually she said she felt like our relationship would end if she was honest. I said I would hear her out, no matter what. She admitted it was hard that this would be her first kid and not mine. She didn't think it would bother her and it didn't until she was pregnant, and that she laid in bed at night thinking if my ex would have wanted to raise Leah we would still be a family together and she wouldn't matter. She expressed that seeing me emotional about our baby, or wanting to touch her bump, or treat her made her think of me and my ex and how I had already did all of the things she was excited to do with me. Near the beginning of her pregnancy, she had told a close friend that she couldn't wait to have a baby with her soulmate, and her friend replied that she didn't think soulmates had other children or baby mamas, that it was two people meant only for each other. She was very upset and asked if I thought we were soulmates like she did. She described herself and our unborn child as my sloppy seconds family, that no one grew up dreaming of having kids by multiple different people. That she was just the substitute when the family I wanted didn't work out. She also shared she had found some old images of my ex on social media and could not stop comparing her pregnant body. She feared the baby wouldn't be an equal to Leah in my eyes. It worried her when I would ask what she thought the baby would be like, that what if the baby was disabled, or didn't like to do the things we enjoyed as a family, or the baby and Elle didn't like each other. She said at one point she found herself wishing I had never had Leah, so she wouldn't have to worry as much, and that is when she knew she had to really put in the extra effort to maintain a relationship with Leah. She feared that between work and Leah, I wouldn't have time and wouldn't bond with the baby like in the articles she read online where fathers didn't bond with their children until they were able to do things with the family. When I did try and bond with the baby, she worried the baby wouldn't live up to Leah. I have never been shy about saying how much being a father means to me and how raising Leah has been the highlight of my life, along with marrying my wife and now having our child together. She said it was initially what made her confident in marrying me and excited to have a big family with me. But now constantly wondered if her pregnancy and this baby would be a highlight or a burden for me, because the stress is the same but the newness wasn't, and then what if a newborn and then toddler wouldn't be as interesting to me as Leah who is capable of doing activities. She showed me a million articles of different men explaining they didn't bond with their children until 4+ years old. She also showed me videos where people say things they did with their first kid, and then get more relaxed as they have more children. She said it freaked her out because it was clear people stopped caring the more children they had. She said that there were times she felt she was ruining our family and coming between me and Leah. For example, at the zoo she said she cried on the way to the hospital. She was afraid Leah would hate her and resent the baby for cutting our zoo time short, and that I would be upset that I was spending my time off work at the hospital instead of doing the activities we planned with Leah. While I work, Leah and my wife spend a lot of time out of the house, library, local parks, etc. One of their favorite activities is biking together, and we bike together on weekends as well. We have lots of local trails, but due to her pregnancy she has not been able to. We've been doing more indoor activities. My wife said that when I'm at work, Leah kept saying she hated her because she didn't get to go on her new bike as often anymore. I said I would discuss it with her, because that is unacceptable. My wife asked me not to since there would be so many changes soon for Leah, and it hurt her because she missed biking together as well. A couple of months ago, my wife asked me and Leah if we wanted to read stories together. Leah chose the first story I read and my wife chose the second, her favorite childhood story, for me to read to the baby, and Leah, since it helps promote brain activity and help with bonding. After that, I read another book of Leah's choosing. While I was at work the next day, Leah ripped the pages out of the book my wife chose. She said she was going to tell me, but her friend, the same friend who says we aren't soulmates, said I would think she was making it up and that it seemed to her she was trying to become between me and Leah. I asked her why she didn't tell me any of this, and she explained that she didn't feel comfortable telling me because her thoughts didn't even make sense to her. She wanted me to spend time with Leah so she didn't feel left out or jealous, and when I did she felt upset I wasn't spending more time with her. She loves Leah but wishes we had our first kid together. She wants me around but also feels upset and guilty when I give her/our unborn baby attention. She said she feared that I would think she was trying to come between me and Leah, when she wasn't. By the time I realized something was truly wrong and started to ask what was wrong, if she needed therapy, etc., she said she realized she was acting poorly, but didn't want to admit to herself that she missed out on a lot with me and doubled down as it was hard to face that she made her fears reality by pushing me away and not letting me care. And that she couldn't start over, that her first pregnancy was a somewhat bad experience because of her own actions. At this point, I realized how terrible I'd been. I apologized for making her feel like she couldn't come to me about anything. She said when she researched her feelings she found a bunch of forums where people were calling the poster evil for their feelings about their stepchild, and feared I would feel the same. She said if I had told her I felt about Leah the way she felt about Leah, that it would make her angry and upset, so she couldn't see how I wouldn't be. We both cried for a long time. I tried to reassure her. I told her how much I loved her. How excited I was, that she was the family of my choosing and my soulmate, that the universe knew that Leah and I needed her which is why circumstances allowed us to be a family. She apologized for the way she treated me, and said she wanted to make it right. She said she had wanted to apologize when I was beginning to have my meltdown, but was surprised when I yelled, and realized she might have messed up beyond repair to get that reaction from me. We continued to cry for a long time, and she asked if I wanted to feel the baby. Of course I said yes, and we cried even more. It turned out to be a great evening. I made us dinner and we laughed about how I was so stressed I went to Reddit for advice. She wanted to read the post and cried again when she did. I reassured her we could move past this and she said she felt less horrible as she read some of the comments from women in her shoes. It was a bit awkward the first week, after so many months of tension. I knew things were turning around when she woke me up by whispering baby wants blueberry pancakes that Saturday. I don't think I've ever prepared pancakes so fast, I couldn't keep the smile off my face. We ended up going to a pool party a few days later, and she let me choose her swimsuit, a big deal for someone who only wore baggy clothes around me. We took family pictures, and the universe is clearly on my side because on the way home she asked me to feel her belly and our baby was hiccuping, something I had never felt before, and it was the first we could share together. She has even let me help her when she is sick without making an excuse about Leah. I've learned that when she comes and puts her back to me and lifts her arm, that is my cue to lift her belly up. I now spend a lot of time rubbing and talking to her belly, and rubbing her feet, legs, back, shoulders, hips, haha, she is sore everywhere at this point. The first 500 times it made me cry. It has been such a relief to be involved. I never thought being tasked with acquiring the most random food items at 2 a.m. would be a great time for me, but it is. It still sucks that I missed out on a lot. I think it sucks for her too. She gets emotional and says a weight has been lifted off of her and things are so much easier, and she is upset that she didn't talk to me sooner. I have been working to fix some of my wife's guilt. I realized there were a lot of simple fixes. For example, I was able to go to my local bike shop and get a pull behind the trailer. Now, I pull her in that and she can use a small fan and ice packs, and Leah can ride her bike. I have taken off work so I can spend more time with them both. We are all in therapy and thankfully Leah's therapist is continuing to say she is securely attached to both of us, enjoys the time we spend together, is coping very well. Some of her behavior was due to another situation, which we have resolved, and she is excited to be a big sister. My wife was terrified that maybe she could sense her attitude shift, but her therapist says that she only has one complaint about my wife, that she forgot her candy one time and then it took 32 whole minutes for the store to deliver it. My wife is in therapy working to overcome the negative feelings she has. That is pretty much where we are now. We are getting very close to baby time and working hard to finish preparing. My wife still needs reassurance. There are a lot of times she brings up my ex and I've found bringing up our first helps. For example, she will ask about certain things and how it was for me. I'll say I don't want to talk about that, and steer the conversation to us. Do you remember our first house? First vacation? First kiss? Date? Remember that time blah blah? It made me fall more in love with you. Do you remember when you and Leah made me blah? That is still one of my prized possessions. It upsets me that my wife suffered for so long. I believe saying it out loud took a lot of power away from her feelings. I think most people know how badly it feels when you have thoughts that don't feel like your own when you're going through a mentally taxing time. I really should have stood up for our relationship and her mental health way sooner. I accepted her brushing me off for far too long when I should have realized she needed help. I appreciate everyone who reached out or offered advice. I posted this in detail with my wife's permission. She hopes that it helps someone out there struggling with the same feelings she felt. TLDR, my wife was facing insecurity and some mental health issues and did not feel she could reach out to me as they involved my bio daughter. Thankfully, Elle received great advice from my FIL and you all, and we spoke about it and worked it out. After some awkward times, things are somewhat back to normal and I'm able to be involved in my wife's pregnancy. Everyone, including Leah, is doing well and excited for the baby to arrive. Relevant comment. Commenter, I wonder, how is your wife moving forward regarding her friend? It seems she didn't even consider having these insecurities before she had a snake in her ear. OP, we have disinvited this friend from our home. It's hard to cut her out as she is part of my wife's larger friend group. My wife was unsure as this friend has gone through some hard things lately. However, recently my wife hosted a girls' night and her friends were arriving as I was leaving. I told her she looked beautiful and wished them a good time. When I arrived back, my wife told me this friend said in front of the whole group that I may be saying kind things to her now, but after some changes after birth I won't describe here, I will be after her. My wife said that was an unkind and untrue thing to say, and she said it was a joke. I made it very clear to my wife that I did not want her around, as we are in an emotionally vulnerable time and this person clearly does not wish us well, and she agreed.